Okay, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, people on the internet. This is officially the very first video I've ever recorded to just talk. I think I did a couple little short talking videos for my business, quick little things on Instagram or whatever it was, but this is my first official video. It's very nerve-wracking. I think I would love to tell my story. But most importantly, I think I want to do this to help learn. I don't know if I'll ever have followers. I don't know if I'll ever make a dime off this, but I'm doing this for myself. And I know based on everything I've been through, I know I can relate to a lot of people. And I also know that my story can help people. Here's what I think is different in my perspective before I tell my story. I'm not a victim of anything. I have it so good, even though so many people feel sorry for me when they understand some of the shit that I deal with and what I've been through. But the way I look at my life is I am in the 1% because I live in the United States of America. I'm in the 1% because I live in 2019. I am in the 1% because I am alive. I am in the 1% because I am fairly healthy. And that puts me in like a 1% of the 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 1%. And so for me, that means like, holy shit, my life's so much more amazing than I think people realize. So I could elaborate on that quite a bit, but the reality is I don't know how long humans have been around. Maybe 100,000 to 200,000 years is what science has kind of, told me, even though I haven't done the research myself. And I really think only in the last couple thousand years have we even had, functioning societies where people help each other, where people, kind of take over roles so that you can just focus on one role. So, I think back on the pyramids and very primitive where you got killed, you got murdered, you got enslaved if you didn't provide for whoever was in charge, And so that's kind of where I want to start, my first, introduction on my perspective is so different than most people's because I came from a place where that's how my mind worked. I came from a childhood where I felt like you almost had to kill to survive. And I didn't know happiness. I didn't know affection. I didn't know love. I didn't know how to make friends. But I really feel like most of human history probably lived the same life I did. So, I don't really feel that I'm special or that I'm, a victim. It's just, a lot of people go through the same shit I went through. I grew up, I guess this is where I'm going to start kind of my story, or the abbreviated version that I can recall off the top of my head, in future talks and future discussions that I could probably regurgitate, remember more things, but there's only so much I can tell you in this short story because, I'm probably going to end up bouncing around. I'm not a very good speaker. I'm probably going to bounce around from jobs to home life to, college to all these things that, I was fortunate to do. But I think what makes me a little bit different than a lot of people that I'm around today is that when I was younger, and even starting this out, it really scares me because I know that my parents, both my mother and my father, my brother and my sister are all going to have completely different perspectives. I have a completely different perspective than my father, than my brother, than my sister, than my mother, and everyone outside of our family. I don't want to sound, self-centered, but I really feel like I probably got the worst of the years I was alive, from 80 to, maybe till I was like 13 or 14. I don't even remember when my father finally got out of our household. So I really feel like I really got the worst of that. And I didn't know it at the time. I know it now. But I really have compassion for what my mother went through as well. Because my mother, she probably grew up in a pretty normal upbringing, that she had ups and downs. She had a brother that has a totally different lifestyle and personality than she does. I think my mom was probably the normal girl that, was very together, and my grandparents are great people, work hard, typical blue collar. But when my mom married my father, every story I hear is, I don't know what I was thinking. I was scared. I tried to run from him, but he pressured me into things and he chased me down. And, my mother hated him and my father hated him, but, I just didn't listen. And I think she probably thought she could change him, or maybe he would get better, or I don't know for sure. That's probably a conversation that we haven't gone too deep in. But anyway, to begin my story, I don't even know what my earliest childhood memory is. But if I were to go back into my childhood, I don't even know where it starts. All I know is every day of my life, I was afraid. And I don't really know how to explain that, because my baseline, my normal everyday baseline, was fear. I didn't trust my parents. I didn't trust my father. I loved my mom and I was close to my mom, and she was kind of my safe place. But then, when I was in trouble, or if I didn't want to pick up my room or anything like that, it was, she just handed that over to my father. And that was always violence. It was extremely violent. It was pick you up, throw you onto the bed, pull the belt off, and just wail on you. It was not a, hey, you shouldn't have done that, I'm spanking you. This was a grown man picking up a 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old child, throwing him, and just beating and slapping and just wailing as hard as you can with a belt. And this was rage. This is not punishment. This is not, hey, do you know what you did wrong? This was pure pissed off wail on you. And this was every fucking time. This was the threats every day. If you don't do this and you don't do that. And my whole entire life was fear. I don't have one single recollection of the words "I love you" until I was maybe a teenager and I was at a friend's house that lived down the street. I don't know if I was like 13 or 12, but I heard my friend's mother say that to him as he was going out to play. And I had never heard that in real life from a parent to a child, and it felt really awkward. And so, to give you that perspective, I did not know how to digest the words "I love you." And that was, me as a teenager. I had never seen that kind of speak, at my house. I'd never heard my mom say that to me. I had never heard my parents say it to each other. It's not that I had never heard the words before. I mean, I'm sure I'd seen it in a movie or whatever, but these moments are burned into my head. Being at a friend's house as a teenager, hearing a parent say, "I love you," to my friend, and I I was so blown away that his mom would say that to him. And so, as of now, I live in Overland Park, Kansas, a very, very nice part of the country, very well-to-do people around here, and God, so different world than I grew up in. So anyway, back to my childhood. My whole entire life was fear. Our household, to me, was normal. I didn't know any different. So for me, like we rarely left the house. If we left the house, it was like once in a great while on a Friday night or maybe a Saturday night, we would, get the privilege of going out to eat. Maybe it was McDonald's or there was like an Andy Santa Fe, like a Mexican restaurant. I remember going to like maybe once a year, twice a year. But that was like a special occasion thing that was so fun. But, of course, like everything else, we did not get to choose what we got to eat. Like it was always like, oh, no, this is the thing. You can choose this or this. This is the cheapest thing on the menu. So, and I don't think that that's abnormal. I think a lot of households, they tell their kids, this is your option or this is your option, got to get the cheapest thing or whatever, and that's totally fine. And that's kind of how any kind of shopping to the grocery store or JCPenney or whatever it was back then, same kind of deal. It was a privilege, for school to get like, hey, you can pick out or we can buy these shirts and sneakers for you. And, my mom kind of picked all that stuff out, but I don't know why I went down that tangent because we did have things, my dad, wasn't rich. My dad was a pipe fitter. And if you know anything about that industry, most of them are union. We were never poor, but we definitely didn't get, nice things all the time. My dad was very, very frugal. You just didn't get toys for no reason. You didn't get candy for no reason. You didn't get to get things at the store. You didn't have choices. You just kind of were forced to like never ask for anything, never touch anything. And it was always no, So, but, I don't think that that's anything bad. I think a lot of families kind of have those rules in place and live by very frugal means. But it just felt like everyone around me had all these privileges, like I would sit in my room. I don't even know what time it was, 7, 8 o'clock at night. I don't know what time I went to bed, but I would just always stare out the window watching my neighbors play, ride bikes as I was supposed to be in bed asleep. And that's really, really frustrating as a child. I had so much energy and was constantly in fear. But, I did live in a neighborhood. I did live in Blue Springs, Missouri, not a super wealthy area or anything, but just very middle class. But when you're in neighborhoods, you notice that like, man, that kid down the street, he's got a Diamondback, bike, that thing was like $100 or whatever, which today's money might be $500 or whatever. And, that's the easy stuff. The easy stuff is, oh, the neighbor kid across the street, he had 1 or 2 bikes, which, everybody talked about. Oh my God, why would their parents buy him 2 bikes? That is just crazy. Oh, they're just trying to show off. That's, what my parents would say, how your parents are, you overhear things and you get a perception of people based on what your parents say. And so that brings me to, I've already mentioned my father was kind of what I was afraid of. So my father was the guy that, I listened to all these motivational speaking and these people that build $billion businesses. And I listened to all these people who, came from nothing. But they all have this common thing, but my family, supported me. My family was positive. My family was there for me, and we didn't have much, but we had love. And, my brothers and sisters were there for me. And, I had support, and I, went out and grounded out, and I was a hustler. And all these stories of all these successful entrepreneurs and all these successful people that came from nothing all shared something that I didn't have. And so it's really difficult to try to digest the struggle that I have had my entire life. My entire life struggle has been staring out windows, trying to figure out how these people make friends, how these people have social lives, how these people are able to just go talk to people, how these people are able to get girlfriends, get boyfriends, all these things, I was deathly afraid of people. My dad really made me afraid of people. He made me afraid of making a mistake. I lived in a house where if you made a mistake, you were punished. And that punishment was not, light. This was like getting a belt, which a belt is 100 times more painful than a punch or a slap. I mean, this is like an extension of leather from a baseball swing. My dad is a very powerful, very angry, very violent, explosive person. And so he would just wail on me about as hard as a human can. I don't know how he didn't break the skin on me every time he would, get pissed off at me. I do know as I got older into like, I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I do know that I would go look in the mirror and I would be black and blue. I would be bruised all up and down my back and my butt and whatever else. But, as a kid, you're just curling up on a ball because you feel like you're going to die. You have this person that's 10 times your size coming at you with every rage. He'd be beet red, just chasing you. And that was my whole entire life. I felt like every fucking day of my life, I would just get chills when I heard the garage door open and he would come upstairs. And it was like 50-50. Is he fucking pissed off? Did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? And then, my dad expected dinner on the table as soon as he got home. And, man, it was just like, if you giggled, if you laughed, if you spoke, you would get punished. You would, I remember vividly, I think it was in 5th grade. I don't even know how old kids are when you're in 5th grade, but we would sit at the table. I was looking at my sister, and for some reason we were both giggling. My dad was like, shut up. My dad was, you don't speak at the table. You do not open your mouth. You don't speak unless you ask to pass something. And he was very strict about, using your fork correctly. Don't chew with your mouth open. And, he got pissed off at anything and everything. I remember he would throw food across the freaking kitchen. He would throw, I don't even know what he would throw, but he would get so pissed off just because somebody said something or somebody giggled or maybe somebody, I know my mom, maybe one time she cooked fish sticks and he got so fucking pissed off and threw shit across the kitchen. It's like, that is the type of world I grew up in. My dad is a hater. That sounds so crazy to say. I've actually never really said this much out loud ever in my life. I've spoken to a few people over the last couple of years, how, my childhood was, a little different, a little traumatic, and that's why I've been so afraid of being social and I don't go out and all these things. But yeah, man, my dad is a hater. My dad would talk shit on everybody that didn't see things his way. He would ridicule, my dad really thought he was the shit my whole entire life. He always talked about how amazing he was and how badass he was and how good he is and how he won these awards and how, everyone else is a piece of shit and how hard he works. And he always talked down to people who had more than him. If someone had more than him or, people that live in Johnson County, which, if anyone listening to this is from Kansas City area, you have Kansas City is primarily in like 2 or 3 counties. You got the Jackson County, which is the Missouri side with the stadiums and Blue Springs, Independence, Lee Summit. That's a majority of the Missouri side. It's in Jackson County. And then there's a couple counties in the Kansas side, but now I live in Johnson County. But, I would hear him talk so much shit on those people. And, whether it was, oh, nobody over there in those houses can afford even the furniture. They're so fucking stupid. Those people, can't afford, even to buy furniture. And they would buy these big ass houses just trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're, stupid. And, that was just how my dad spoke about anyone that wasn't like him or anyone that was above him or maybe as he felt was above him. So whether that's insecurity or bipolar or maybe he's got some mental illness, I don't know. So my whole entire life, I grew up with this vision of a family of humans that was almost like a primal. I think of my past as almost like a very primal, like lions or something. Like when I was young, I always thought, like, I'm going to have to kill him. I am going to have to run away, and I'm going to have to do something for me to have freedom and so that I can make a choice on my own. And that's another thing that my dad would always say too, when you have your own house, you can make your own decisions, but this is my house, which, I'm sure other people hear that too. Just maybe the consequences in those actions were a little more extreme than some others. But the reason I talk about this is because I know there's other people that either have gone through what I'm going through or maybe still going through it today. And I think the violence and the cruelty and the negativity and the constant telling me I'm a piece of shit and how stupid I am my whole entire life, that has to be still going on. I don't know who or where or what might be listening to this, or I bet you there's a lot of people my age and older that went through this. Today with internet and the news and everything's so connected, this has to be a smaller problem. But I think my story of how I came from this perspective to where I am today can help a lot of people overcome a lot of things, because I think having a perspective of yourself and a perspective of the world, how do I say this? I didn't even know the world that I know today existed. When I was a child, I didn't even know if I would ever meet someone that would even care about me. I did not think I would ever really get married. I didn't think I would ever really have the option of having somebody truly love me. I did not know if that was real. It's funny because even through middle school and high school, I didn't know that I was that much different. I didn't know that my upbringing was too extreme. I mean, I knew from looking at other people's lives that they had friends and they went over to people's houses and they, went and did shit. They went to skating rinks, all this shit, on the weekends where we didn't do that shit. I didn't have people over. I didn't go over to people's houses. I didn't go to skating rinks. I didn't go whatever the hell people did. I didn't go to the mall. I didn't go to the movie theater. We weren't allowed to do shit. My life was chores, obey, or get punished. And so, once I was able to start working for my mother and then later for, other people as a preteen and teenager, man, I ate that up. Anything to get out of my house, do something different, do something besides a chore, and get paid for it. or some type of, compensation of some sort. So I gave my whole life and every ounce of energy I had to work. And so that became basically my life from, maybe 10 years old until I was, I guess, even today. So, yeah, now granted, my life today is radically different. And that was a long journey. I probably had a good 20 years of trying to figure out what society really was. I wasn't taught as a child. I wasn't taught like, we're going to go over to these people's houses and we're going to teach you how to like say hi, and we're going to, teach you, social skills and how to play with others. Like I was never shown that. We were never put in those environments. I do know my mom, occasionally we'd be lucky enough, we'd go to the park and we did semi-normal things with my mom. But, my mom was, I'm sure, scared. I know my dad would do crazy ass shit, try to keep her from leaving the house, unhook the battery, pull the spark plugs or whatever the hell. I don't know exactly all the details of all that bullshit. But my dad would pull some crazy ass shit, to keep my mom from leaving the house because he was probably very insecure. And I know he was accusing her of doing shit, when she wanted a divorce and tried to leave. But that's just pure insecurity right there. So let's see here. So after my kind of preteen years into my teen years, my parents split. And at first, my dad, attempted to take us every other weekend or whenever he could. And, I think at first, we kind of tried to do every other weekend. And then it went to, like once in a while. And, he was sharing a house with some guy. So, we would all stay down in the basement. And it's kind of weird looking back on it now, but it was fine. It was actually pretty cool. The guy he shared a house with was a really nice guy. And, but anyway, but here's what became very evident. He started dating other people, and so did my mom. And my mom finally had someone healthy in her life. And so it was my first time in my entire life I had some type of, I don't know if you want to call him a role model, but he was my mom's boyfriend. And then eventually they got married. But this gentleman was nothing like my father. He was actually a police officer. He was a great guy. He would go to the gym after work. He would come home and he was very affectionate. And I had never seen that in my life. I was like, wow, this is weird. But I liked it because it was positive. And it was like, I wasn't scared of this guy. And of course, my dad's pissed off and accusing him of being a piece of shit and, trying to find dirt on him, telling me like, don't let him fucking tell you what to do, or, my dad's fucking crazy. So it's funny because I see that now in like, girlfriends I've had and ex-girlfriends, how their ex would like try to find dirt on me and try to make up shit and try to talk to people. And it's like the same damn behavior my dad did, My dad would try to find dirt on people that were actually really great people. If my dad would just get his fucking act together, he would realize like, wow, that's cool. My kids are actually going to do shit, So with my stepdad, God, we took vacations. We took his bass boat. We went to the lake. Like we did all these things like I had never done in my life. I'd never been on a boat, never been to a lake, never done fucking shit. And of course, my dad found out about it. Oh, fuck yeah, no, I don't want to do that. And why, I'm your dad. I should be the one to be able to take you to a lake and, take you for the first time on a boat. And da-da-da-da. I'm like, I'm fucking 15 years old. My first time on a lake or in a boat, and you're pissed off because you wanted to. I'm fucking 15. Like I'm almost driving and, going to work and doing my own fucking thing. And, my dad's pissed off because he wanted to be the first person. I'm like, dude, you had 15 fucking years to, to take us outside the house and do something. I remember like 2 or 3 vacations my whole entire life up until that point. There was only one of those that was even like an actual vacation. We went to Colorado and I barely remember it because I was a little kid, but every other thing we did was like once in a while we'd go see our grandparents. See our grandparents in Lawrence. We went and saw some of our family down in Oklahoma. But it was just to go visit family. So for me, it was just, more of the same, sit in a car, tell you what to do, don't act up, shut up, don't say anything, fucking, whatever. And it was never fun. Sit in a car just to go hang out with some people that are like 5 times your age. And, here I am, a little 10-year-old hanging out with 50, 60-year-old people. Our vacations were not fun for me. So, until my mother's, new second husband came around, I didn't really know what vacations really were. I didn't really know what that was. You heard the term. You always knew that people went and did that. We just didn't. We just didn't do shit. And it wasn't because my dad couldn't afford it. My dad wasn't rich, but he just, he didn't believe in that. I even remember him saying, like, when you get older, don't be stupid. And, you got to spend all your money on things that you can show for it, So don't be spending your money on things like going out to eat and food and, traveling and, amusement parks and shit like that, because that kind of stuff is a waste of money. He goes, you go do it. And then when you're done, you have nothing to show for it. So my dad, instilled this, like, you spend money on things because once you've spent the money, you have this thing forever. He goes, his whole life was he restored a 69 Camaro. And, I was right there next to him. I would give him tools. I would go get him beers. I would, help spray paint things. I would help sand shit, even though I was a little kid. I obviously couldn't do too much, but I was there for the whole entire process. And, for me, that was like the coolest thing because everybody was like, oh, wow, that's a cool car. And so my whole entire life, like that Camaro, 69 Camaro my dad had was the only cool, fun thing we had. We didn't have any fun in our house, but, at least when we got out the Camaro, people would be like talking to us and they'd be like, thumbs up, or we'd go for a drive and it was fucking fun. So it was like the only fun I had in my entire fucking life as a child was we get this car out, And so, my sister's like 2 years older than me. And, my dad always had the pride of saying, oh, you treat a lady a certain way. And, even though I'm sure, he may not have been as physically abusive to them, but I'm sure he was still an asshole and still a dick and still told him to shut up, just like he did me. But I know he picked on me way more than my sister. So, but I'm sure my sister was in the same house. I mean, she probably went through a lot of the same shit. And so, me and my sister went through fucking hell. My parents fought and screamed all the fucking time. My dad was violent. My dad was scary. My dad would scream and fucking spit. And he'd be beat red. And he'd just, be so built up that he just wanted to, you could tell he just wanted to fucking punch somebody or kill somebody. And that was like a daily fucking occurrence. It was like every fucking day of my life. And it was just like, damn. So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. So I guess where I'm going with this Camaro was kind of like the only thing that was like, hey, we're going to get this out. We're going to go drive around. And we felt, or at least I felt cool. It's the only thing we ever did where we felt cool. Because, my dad would take it to these car shows. That's like our only time we ever got out. We got out of the fucking house. We did something. So, the crazy thing for me, I'm going to turn off my air here so it doesn't make noise. So, my brother came along about 5 years after me. So my brother is, at least 5 years younger than I am. And so he was the baby. So all this time, when I was, like when I was 10 years old, he was just turning 5. And that's kind of like, for me, it was like the worst time, in those years of my life, from maybe like 7 to 13. It was just so violent. My dad was working crazy overtime and he was trying to build a house and, and in his eyes, don't spend a fucking dime on anything. You're going to save every fucking dime. We're not going to have any fun. We're going to do shit because every dollar's going to go into this house, right? And that was kind of my dad's, view that, this house is everything. House is way more important than being happy or going doing shit and having fun. So he took out all his pissed off rage and frustration on me and my mom. Like, she would come home and, he'd get pissed off and fucking hit me with the belt and get pissed off. Dude, one time, God, we were in a duplex when we were building this house. I don't know what I had done. I had done something that had pissed off my mom. I don't know. I wasn't a bad kid either. Like, I'm pretty aware. Like, I don't know if I didn't want to do my homework, if I didn't want to clean up. I don't know what it was, but something. But because my dad was like working overtime, trying to make money to like build this fucking house that he wanted to build, it was probably more than he needed or whatever, but it's what he wanted. And so he came home really late one night, and I will never forget it. I was deathly afraid because my mom, which this really pissed me off at the time, my mom basically threatened me, like, I'm going to call your dad and he's going to come home and you're going to be sorry. And my mom would call him and tell him. And I was like, Mom, what the fuck? And like, I was pissed off because my mom knows, like, what the fuck are you doing, Mom? Why are you telling him this? He's going to come home and beat the fucking shit out of me. And sure enough, I was like shaking in my bed, fucking like, when you're an adult about to piss your fucking pants because somebody that's twice your size is about to bust through the door and beat the crap out of you. My dad came in, and I lived down in this little bitty entryway of a basement. I can't even hardly remember it, but it was barely a bedroom. He picked me up and he threw me up the fucking stairs. He threw me up the stairs, kicked me, and just started wailing on me. I was probably in between 4th and 5th grade. So I don't even know how old I was, but I know I was between 4th and 5th grade, or maybe I was in 5th grade, because it was when we moved from Blue Springs to Green Valley, and we were in between having our house done. So it was like in this duplex. So, man, that was like fucking nightmare. And I don't think my dad realizes that, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. And I don't think you know what it's like to have someone that's twice your size and 3 or 4 times stronger than you, literally taking every little ounce of energy as a grown man in his rage, like, out against me. Like, anyway, some crazy ass moments. And I used to tear up when I used to talk about this shit, but I've told a few people about my experiences, and including my brother's psychologist, and I've gone and seen psychologists. I've talked to friends. I'm very proactive in trying to make sure any of my actions, any of my feelings, any of my perspectives are in check, because I think a lot of people feel like victims, but they're not really asking the professionals and the people around them, what did you see? What did you feel? Because, I could really make out all the shit that I went through in this big hordes ordeal and blame everything in my life on it. And, I'm sure at times I kind of point towards it, and, because you can't not. I mean, there's a reason why it took me 10 fucking years to be able to talk to people or even call up and order pizza. Because I was definitely afraid of people. I was afraid to make a mistake. My dad always punished me if I misspoke, or if I giggled and I wasn't supposed to laugh. Like, I was punished for that shit. I was told I was stupid. I was told I was a piece of shit. And so I guess going from, a teenager, a preteen, up until like college, that part of my life, man, I just wanted to work. So my whole entire college and high school, it was like work, 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 work. It's all I had. It was my freedom. It was like, man, I've got my own money. I can have things. I can, I can get the PlayStation that my friends have that I would love to have, and always wanted a car. So, I had cars paid for, before I was even 16. I guess I had paid for most of it. I actually borrowed a tiny bit from my grandparents on my mom's side to purchase my first car. So I had a little help, but I did pay him back, all that good stuff. But I worked so hard, put all my money, like a typical boy does, put all your money in your car, fix it up. And because it's all I had, we didn't have internet and social lives, and I didn't go to the movies. I didn't do anything. I just worked. So, let's see. So from there, in high school, I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do. So I went to Votech because I'd already built motors for my race car. Well, I call it a race car. I built motors for this hot rod I had as a car. I built one motor, and the cam went flat. Built a better roller motor for that one. Had tons of money in that. And then I'd build the rear end up, rebuild the train, totally rebuilt this car. Probably had 20, 25 grand in this, car as a high school student, which at that time was a ton of money. I'd be probably like 50 grand at today's money. But then I would get a second truck and then a second car and all these other things because it became so radical of a car that I had to kind of move on to a daily driver and then have this little toy car. So, and then that eventually got stolen from me from a friend that I'm not going to get into. But anyway, that kind of goes into the story of not being able to stand up for myself. So because of how I was kind of beat down as a child, I had zero confidence. My confidence was like through the floor. If someone could get me into an argument, I could get kind of riled up and I would argue with people like my mom or whoever. But that was like, that it didn't give me confidence, but that was like the only time I had any kind of aggression or any type of anything, because in school or around people or any situation, I had no confidence whatsoever. I was told I was stupid. I'd amount to nothing. I was told all these things as a child. And, I didn't even think I'd even get married and have kids or anything. And by the way, I've never been married, never had kids or anything to this day still. And there's probably a lot of reasons why that's the case, but no confidence, no ability to go talk to random strangers. Sales position could be something I could have never in a million years done. I can't talk to strangers. I was always the kid that didn't say much, like in high school. I kind of knew everybody. I didn't have that many enemies. So I was friends with most people. I was just, didn't usually go hang out with them. I wasn't invited to parties. I didn't, get invited to go do much because I was the kid that was always working, and, I didn't talk much. I was luckily athletic. I was 6'2", 6'3" in high school. I was always a big muscular kid thanks to my stepdad that took me to the gym. I kind of got athletic. So I was very lucky to be very athletic, very big, very tall, and that kind of probably saved me all the way through high school and college because I had no social skills. But I was a big kid. I was one of the fastest, tallest kids in the school and in college both, and I think that's probably what saved me from having even greater social anxiety. And so, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. Like, I was just working my ass away, and I was a trim carpenter before I could drive, and then after I could drive, and then during the week, and during the school year, I would work at Zarda Barbecue, which is a barbecue place in Blue Springs. I would work at Blue Beacon, the truck wash place when I was a senior, and I was always a trim carpenter, or I would help him build houses when he transitioned from a full-time trim carpenter to being a home builder / trim carpenter in high school. So I've always been in construction, and so I transitioned into kind of being a semi-superintendent, from a very young age of like 17, 18 years old. But the guy I had worked for at the time, he knew my skill set because he had kind of taught me everything I knew. And so when I went into working for other builders, I don't think they really knew my skill set. So, and my communication skills were like nil. So, you know, they kind of hired me on as like having knowledge of like building and superintending, but yet, when I didn't have the social skills to like call people and ask people because I was so afraid of talking to people I didn't know, that I would end up just being a grunt worker and digging ditches and shit. And I don't think that one builder that I'd worked for next probably got the benefit out of what I could have provided to him, because I don't think he really knew my strengths and weaknesses. So anyway, went to college, worked for a builder, and worked for my mom off and on all the way through college, helping my mom run her catering business, catering weddings and doing food and all that good stuff. And all this time during high school and college and after college, I had to cut my father out of my life. My father had tried to marry this lady, and he took crazy advantage of her, kind of was abusive and, very narcissistic, sociopath type person towards her and me and everyone else. But, my brother was kind of around because he was so much younger. He was kind of the baby. He didn't really get anything that I got. So he kind of got, the baby treatment. Like for my mom, like he was like the baby. He got all the treatment and then when my dad got remarried, she never had kids. My dad's new wife had never had kids. And so Brady was like this, high school student or, even middle school student. And here I am going off to college. And man, I got to hear and see all the things that he got to do with her. And I was like jealous. I was like, wow, you get to do all these cool things and you got to do all this stuff. And he got treated like a king because this lady had never had, a child. And so they were like best friends. They'd go to all those things. They would go get pizza and they would go to her shop. And I was like, wow, my brother's living this life that I didn't even think existed. And so, part of me was a little jealous, but I just did my thing, man. I was focused. I was in college. I was trying to get through and trying to figure out ways to make friends. And man, so I've got to kind of rewind here because I'm leaving out stories. One of the major stories that I have already skipped over is I had actually tried to have a couple relationships in high school. I had pretty good relationships, actually. I was the quiet kid, but yet, I really cared about people. And my first girlfriend, it was like a year or almost a year. And, I finally decided to break up with her because I knew, I was like, man, she's nice and she likes me, but I know that what I'm trying to do here and how hard I work, and this girl and I just don't have a lot in common. Like, I'm trying to do this, and this girl is completely on a different planet. And when I did that, everyone in school hated me because, she was loving me and I hurt her. And, it's so crazy to look back now how people treat you and how people view things. I was ostracized by so many people because I had broken up with her, but I was doing it for both of our benefits because I cared about her. I even brought her flowers and like apologized and said, I'm so sorry for breaking up with you. But I knew like this girl and I had nothing in common. We were both good people. We were both in the same grade, but geez, other than that, our lives had nothing in common. It was crazy. And for me, it was just like, I had such low confidence. I would just date the only girl that would say yes. And that sounds really bad because to that girl, that could potentially be like a diss, but it's not a diss to that woman because she's a great person, but the reality is we had nothing in common. We had literally nothing in common. We came from different backgrounds. We wanted different things. our energy levels. I mean, everything that we is just radically different. So, long story short, that was the craziest situation because I had friends that stopped talking to me, and still to this day, like we lost friendships because they picked her, and that's just crazy how people are. But then I had moved on, and I started dating a girl from a different school because I met her through work. I was working at Zard Barbecue. I met this wonderful, beautiful lady that got pregnant from her boyfriend, and then he darted because they got pregnant. And, I was head over heels for this girl. This girl was hot. We had a lot in common. We both loved cars. We both had hot rods. We both worked hard. We both had parents that were a little strict and a little rough around the edges and were kind of controlling. And, the car thing was huge. When you're in high school, your car is like everything to you. And both of us had, souped up cars and custom paint jobs and all these things that like no other kid had. We had fast built motors, and, being 16, 17 years old and having those things is, pretty uncommon, especially for, where we lived. So long story short, I befriended her, really loved the girl. And I was there, I was there for her when her boyfriend left her and she had to carry this baby. And, I would do anything for that girl. So she ended up, dating me, and I'd go to checkups with her. I would go to her doctor's appointments, and wow, she ended up being like, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but I don't know much about babies, but she was maybe like 26 weeks premature. I think that's right. And so they had to give her steroids, and they had to sew her cervix shut, kind of put her upside down in a hospital for like a couple weeks because like the rate of survival was so slim that they didn't think it would survive. So after, a few weeks of being dilated to 10 at such an early stage of pregnancy and giving her steroids and being upside down, being stuck in the hospital for a couple weeks, they, finally gave labor to her once she was at a state to where there was a chance this baby would survive. And, I was there for the birth. I was, I think, one of the first people to ever hold this little girl. And she was 1 pound, 6 ounces, I think. And it's pretty crazy because that girl is actually, to this day, a friend of mine on Facebook. And I'm pretty sure she knows that I'm, was in her life for the first year. I don't really know what her mom has told her about me, but yeah, she loved me. I was like the guy, the person that could rock her to sleep. I was there for the first year of that baby's life. So here's where a big important thing in my life happened. So I don't know how long I was with this girl that had this child, and it wasn't my child, but I raised this child for like the first year. And for me, I love both of them. And her father, was Mormon, and her father, was like, hey, you want to join the church and all these things. And me loving this woman, I was like, well, I don't know. And so he was like, well, why don't you take these classes? Why don't you take these elders classes? Why don't you go through the steps to become an elder or whatever the process is? And, I promise you, you're going to love it. And you're going to be so glad you did. And he goes, if you don't, this is actually kind of crazy, but he actually said, if you don't want to do it after you're going through the classes and you're not in, he goes, I'll even pay for this new engine you just put in your car, and you won't owe me a dime. I'm going to take care of it for you because you're in my daughter's life, and I want you in the church. And so I had attempted to take some classes, and I didn't get very far. I didn't really have a lot of exposure to religion as a child. I think, gosh, maybe once a year, like on an Easter or something like that, my mom, would want us to go to church. And Yeah, I didn't know shit. I think one time maybe my mom had tried to take us to a Bible school or something as a child, and just introducing me in the middle of some year-long school, and I was with kids, and they were talking about things that I had never heard, and Jesus, Moses, fucking ark, and I was like, what? I was like, what the hell? I don't even know what these people are talking about. Our household, we didn't talk. It was go to bed, don't do this, shut up. That was my life. I didn't know what fucking religion was. And so, when I went through this elders class for Mormonism or whatever, those classes are called, I was like, oh my, this is some fucking weird shit. This guy found some tablets in the middle of the woods and didn't want to show anybody, and then somebody stole them, and then, well, you got to recite them, and they're different now. But and I'm like, oh, you got magical clothes that protect you, and I'm just like, this shit's fucking weird. And so here, I am a person that is deathly afraid of making a mistake. My daddy conditioned to me, like, you don't fucking lie. And if you caught in a lie, you're going to get set on the porch and you're going to sleep outside on the fucking porch, and the military police is going to come pick you up and you go to jail. And so that was always my upbringing. My upbringing was punishment. You're going to get sent off. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. And so I couldn't lie. I couldn't lie to anybody. And so when he would ask me, what do you think of these classes? What do you think of the Mormon Church? What do you think of the Church of Latter-day Saints? And I told him, I was like, well, I respect your beliefs, but I don't believe it. It's doesn't make sense. I don't think I could do this. And I don't know his words or how it even happened, but he basically told me, like, then you can't ever see my daughter again. And so however that discussion happened, which, crazy enough, I don't even remember how that discussion happened, but I was never allowed to see her again, ever. I was barred from ever seeing that woman and that child. I never got to say goodbye. I never got anything. I never got closure. And so her and I were kind of ripped apart forcefully. And that was hard. I loved that child and I loved that girl. And I had some religious man, father figure, telling me and forcing me to not speak to this person. And so that was my first taste of religion. That was my first taste of how in the hell can this guy's mind work this way? And so from that point on, which, I was probably like 17, from that point on, I studied religion every fucking day for 4 or 5 hours a day. I would get on our little slow dial up. I'd read shit. I'd look up shit. I'd find books. I would research the crap out of religion. And I just couldn't believe how many different religions, where they had come from, and the things that they would say and claim that were true. And here I am. I'm going through school, learning about how old the earth was, biology and dinosaurs, like the typical shit you learn. And you're like, nothing in the Bible, nothing in these other religions jive with anything I know. I would have to shift like everything that I know to make these books compatible with reality that I know. And so I just got to the place where I couldn't fathom how people believe this shit. And I know I'm going to lose a lot of people here because there's so many people here in the Midwest that live, eat, breathe, die God, Jesus, whatever the hell. And it's like, well, if you're in India, if you're in China, if you're in the Middle East, it's like you would eat, sleep, die, something else. You would eat, sleep, die, something. It's just people. I don't even know how people's minds can be so dead set and like put their life on the line for something that has no factual evidence at all. And so I think that's that got my first little spark of researching the shit out of stuff. And so from that day forward, I started researching the living shit out of religion. And then it shifted from like, God, what am I wasting like 5 years of my life researching religion so much? Because I'm just researching shit that doesn't make sense that some human wrote down. And then this king took out that book, added this book, edited this. And it's like, why am I wasting my life researching things that were just written down by some guy? And so I shifted a lot of my research from, religion and trying to figure out why people are religious and why half the world thinks this way, another half the world thinks this way, and these people want to kill these people because they don't think, and none of these religious texts are compatible with each other. And so I started researching the mind. And then once I started researching the mind, I started realizing, oh, wow, this is why I don't have friends. This is why I don't go do things. This is why I sit in my apartment or my condo or, when I was in college, I would sit in my dorm room. This is why I research, I learn. This is why I am what I am. My perspective of the world is radically different than most of the people around me. This is why I had never been to a bar until I was like maybe 26. I don't even know. Like the whole college experience for me was school, sports, work. School, sports, work. I didn't do any extra. I didn't go to parties. Like I think one time I went to some little house party because my some people from some sports that I had known were there, and it was awkward as hell for me to go. And I'm like, hey, like I was the shy, kid, but luckily there was a lot of good people, so I never like was ridiculed or made fun of much, but I just didn't have the confidence to hang around people very long because I can make an appearance and people are like, hey, how you doing? But then once the hey, how you doing was over, I didn't know how to talk to people. And so I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. When you're known by a lot of people, whether it's by classes or sports or whatever it is, you walk into a room like, hey, how you doing, Tyler? Or if you're walking by and they don't know you, they're just like, oh, there's a guy, they walk by you. And the first, few minutes of arriving to a party or any kind of bar, anything, as you're looking around trying to act like you're looking for somebody, that's not too terribly uncomfortable. You're just, like, okay, I've got my chance to walk through this way and my chance to walk through that way as if I'm looking for someone. And so I know that every single time I ever went anywhere, that was my appearance. It was, I would walk through, maybe wave at somebody that was in a conversation, act like I was looking for somebody, and then act like they weren't there and I'd walk out. And that was my social life. If I ever did anything, it was my attempt at trying to be around people, but I was so deathly afraid I had to have a reason. Like my reason was, oh yeah, I'm looking for somebody. And then I would dart out, as if they weren't there. So, see you guys later. And so, so many people got these impressions of me that like, oh, he's normal or he's too good for us or, whatever it was they thought of me, and it was wrong. And it was always just, I was deathly afraid of people, and people thought I was stuck up or that I was, I probably was antisocial, but, I didn't know how to interact with people. So that was my only way of doing it was if I have a purpose, but if I had to stand there and try to join a conversation or start a conversation, I wouldn't even attempt it. It was so death-defying. And even to this day, I still, clam up and turn pale white and sweat and, stutter and say stupid ass things just because I have very, very little experience starting conversations. So I'm going to jump around because I feel like I'm talking forever here. So I'm going to fast forward through some really crazy, hairy, shitty moments of my life because they kind of tie together. I'm going to go back to a relationship that changed my life. But my last relationship. So me recording this right now, I am 39 years old. My last relationship was approximately 8 years ago or so. I say my last relationship, my last serious relationship. You know, I've gone on dates and I've made friends, and you know, I've hung out with females as friends or gone and done stuff, but I haven't had like a serious girlfriend. Well, I called a girlfriend and we dated, and we, you know, our parents knew that we had a boyfriend or girlfriend. That's been like 8 years now. So that person that's in my life, she's still my life. She's still a great friend of mine. I love her to death, and I know she cares a lot about me. And so this is why I've jumped forward to this relationship, because this particular person is the first person in my life that really had the skills that I guess I possess now. I think everybody I had ever dated up until her, you know, was kind of insecure and probably had a similar upbringing where life wasn't perfect and things like that. Not that my last girlfriend had the perfect life or anything, because everybody, you know, has their own set of good things about my life, bad things about my life. And I went through this, and this was good, this was bad, and everybody's got their ups and downs, right? But my last girlfriend, which I'm still friends with today, she was the first person to ever really teach me how to interact with people. So, you know, gosh, here I am, 32. I don't even know how old I was when I met her. But, you know, in my early 30s, this is my first time I'm dating a girl that's like, what are you doing? You know, when people walk through the door, you need to say hi. You need to stick your hand out. You need to, you know, not be over here doing what you're doing. And so that was the first time in my life when I really realized, like, wow, I don't know. I don't even know how to conversate. And you're trying to show me, which is, at the time, my feelings were hurt. And at the time, I didn't realize why. You know, like, you know, when people kind of call you out for doing something either stupid or why don't you know this? This is common knowledge. But, you know, my parents never really taught me these things. You know, my parents really actually did try in certain ways to try to raise me in a good way. Like, even though my dad was abusive and an asshole and insecure, sociopath, narcissist, whatever the hell you want to call those types of people, deep down, he really tried to instill like good work ethic and, you know, chew with your mouth closed and, you know, talk to people a certain way. He tried to, you know, instill some good qualities into me. I just don't think he really knew himself what true good qualities in people are. But he did the best he probably knew how to at the time. So anyway, getting back to this last relationship I've had, you know, 8 years ago, but yet today we're still great friends. This person was the first person that really taught me anything about socializing. You know, she was like, hey, you know, you need to like drop things when people come over. You know, like her kids, she has some kids at the time, they were like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And I'm in my early, you know, 30s or whatever. And she would be like, hey, you know, even when their friend, they bring friends over, you need to like stop what you're doing and go say, hey, I'm Tyler or whatever, and introduce yourself and ask them if they need anything. And, you know, that seems like common knowledge to me now. But back then, I was deathly afraid of these 10-year-old kids. I was afraid. You know, and it's so crazy to look back. That was only 8 years ago. I have grown as a person so much in 8 years for 2 or 3 reasons. My last girlfriend, was a huge reason. She really had her shit together. She had a business where she talked to people every day. She would conversate. She was a part of social circles. She was, in my view, in my eyes, very successful because she could support herself. You know, she made more money than the average person. She had a nice place, and I really looked up to her. And I loved that about her. It was so attractive to see this woman that was confident, and she didn't need me. She didn't need anybody. And she dated me because she liked me and she was attracted to me and all these things because I cared, you know. I obviously wasn't perfect. I had all these little things I needed to work on. I didn't know how to like socialize. I was awkward. I loved her to death, but I would do things that she didn't understand. And so through her, I really, really learned how to socialize, even though, trust me, by the time, you know, we kind of decided that she and I were in different places, you know, we didn't stop seeing each other because we hate each other's guts or anything like that. I really wanted to move forward. I, you know, wanted her and I wanted to move in. I wanted out in her house so we could all fit and I could, you know, whatever. And she was still trying to figure herself out. She didn't have friends. She didn't know what she wanted, and she still doesn't to this day. And if you're listening to this, you know who it is. I'm not speaking bad about her at all because she is an amazing person. I love her to death. It was just I really wanted her, and I wanted us to get together and go forward. And she was afraid. She was afraid to get together with somebody. She's afraid she'd ever want to get married again. And she was like, Tyler, you need to go find someone because you're amazing. You need to go find someone that wants what you want. And at the time, oh, my little thing's falling down here. At the time, I was upset and I wanted her back, you know? So it was hard for me. Like it is with any relationship, it was hard because I didn't understand, like, you know, we both love and respect each other. And like, you know, you're attracted to me, I'm attracted to you, and we both care and we don't hate each other. Like, but now, God, I'm so much smarter now. You know, I look back and my relationships from her and on forward are so much different, so much healthier, even though I have a lot of women get frustrated with me today. But they're frustrated with me because they are not at the level that I am because of all the growth I've had. I came from one crazy perspective of no self-esteem to, you know, now I am extremely confident. I'm extremely knowledgeable. The last 10 years of my life, I have read so many articles, books, talked to so many psychologists. I have watched more YouTube than probably anyone else on earth. I mean, I probably watch YouTube 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, which sounds absolutely absurd. But I watch college lectures. I watch scientists. I watch psychologists. I watch how shit's made. I learn. It doesn't matter if I don't know how something electrical doesn't work. I want to know how something's manufactured. I want to know how a patent's done. I want to know how this business works, or I want to know how X or Y works. But most of it's, you know, brain stuff. I love to learn how people think, why people think what they think. But anyway, so my life now is so radically different. My mind does not even fathom how my mind worked, thought, the perspective it had in my teens and my 20s. Like, I can't even believe the things that I thought, the way I saw things, the way I viewed things. And so now, even though my perspective is radically different, my knowledge set is so large, I still can't get this hard wiring of fear of making mistakes and the hard wiring of, I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm not really afraid of much, but I'm afraid of making mistakes. It was instilled into me as a child. You know, I was punished for giggling. I was punished for saying the wrong things. I was punished for like I would smile at my dad, and my dad would be like, wipe that fucking smile off your face before I beat the shit out of you, and things like that. And maybe he didn't say beat the shit out of you, because I don't, want to misrepresent him, because I'm sure he'll watch this one day. Because crazy enough, he's still alive. But that was my life. My life was wipe that fucking smirk off your face. Like, I couldn't even smile in my household. And so I notice, even in today's world, like, I hide my smile because I was trained and brought up that way. You're not allowed to smile. And it's really sad that, like, I'm afraid to show emotions. I'm afraid, when I'm in a one-on-one with somebody, I could very easily express my feelings and share the depths of my thoughts, but it's weird. You have this hard wiring that, like, I'm afraid to do a lot of things. I'm afraid to smile. Like, I don't even know. It's kind of crazy. So, as you can tell, I'm a way better speaker now, even though this is part of the reason why I'm doing this. I want to be a better speaker. I want to learn more about myself. I want to get feedback. I know even this crazy video I'm jumping all over the place. I have no timeline. I have no script I'm reading off of. This is just me talking about part of my childhood and my life, which honestly is a good 3/4 of the major shit. I mean, there's still other major shit where I get hit by a car on a motorcycle. I couldn't even walk for months, and I lost everything I fucking had. And my insurance company said, sign this. And, and then I didn't even realize I could have fucking got paid for that. And because I signed off that I wouldn't sue my insurance company, I've had so many things stripped from me because I was weak and not confident. And I didn't want to ruffle any feathers that, I've gotten taken advantage of so many people. One story that I will tell in its own video is I dated one woman when I was, 28, 29, 30 years old, something like that. I think it's maybe I was younger. Maybe I was 27, 28. I don't know. Somewhere in those years, I'm not good with time. I met a woman. Whether I reveal any information about her personally, I've dated one person in my life that literally was as or more narcissistic, sociopathic, and dangerous as my father. And that person totally manipulated me, what everyone around me thought of who I was, lied about everything that happened, tried to paint a picture of me that was so false, made up shit. And I finally kind of caught on to how toxic it was. And when I tried to leave, she made up lies and filled out forms and got restraining orders against me. And, stupid me, I was so beat down. I didn't know how the law worked. Never been in trouble with the law. I'd never done anything wrong in my life. So I was like, well, there's court systems. You go to court and like, there's no proof of me ever doing anything bad ever because I loved this woman. And long story short, like, I didn't realize, like, restraining orders, especially in the state of Missouri, there's no evidence. There's no facts. It's not criminal. It's just civil. You go fill out a piece of paper and she can say whatever the fuck she wants to say. And the judge is just going to say, okay, it's granted, because I'm going to go in there and there's nothing I can do, So I tried to fight it and all this crazy, oh my God. She even wrote me love letters afterwards, trying to get me back after filing a restraining order against me and telling me that I tried to hurt her and stalk her. And I'm like, what? It's like, I love this woman. Like, we had a fine relationship until, well, I guess we didn't have a totally fine relationship. But as soon as I wanted to leave her, she just, like, wanted to kill me. It was like the craziest thing. She threatened to kill me. She threatened to have her rich dad have the mob after me and kill me. All these crazy ass things she made up about me. It was pretty wild. She said I tried to kill myself, which is total bullshit. Yeah, I mean, that woman's got problems. And the craziest thing is I went on a few dates with a lawyer girl, like a couple years after I broke up with the next girlfriend. I was in my mid-30s, and I was like, "Hey, you're an attorney. You're gonna end up finding this." I had to tell her about this crazy girlfriend I had, and she goes, "Oh, don't worry, I already found it." That girl, I looked her up. She goes, "I saw that you had this prior restraining order, or ex parte, whatever it's called in Missouri." And she goes, "Oh, don't worry. When I met you, I looked you up." And she's like, "I looked up the girl, and she's done that to 6 other guys." So she's like, "You have no record in this little thing, so it didn't really make sense." So I looked her up, and oh, she's done this to 6 guys. So I just knew this is this girl's. That's her way of getting back at guys. So anyone that knows me and knows who this person is, it happened to me like 10 years ago now. There was like 6 other guys that went through the same bullshit with her. And so that made me feel a little bit better. But here's the thing. There's girls that do background checks up on me, and they dig hard enough they can find that shit. But the reality is like there's nothing I can do to get that off my civil record. Missouri doesn't allow that. In Kansas you can freaking do something really bad, like criminally bad, and get off your record. It's crazy, but yet I have some girl make up some random shit that ain't even true, and it's stuck on there forever, even though I didn't do it. So anyway, that's another crazy story. God, I learned a lot from that, and that's probably why I haven't been with anybody but one person since then, because I got burned so bad by that I'm very cautious now, but I'm very, very optimistic. And I'm going to do a lot of posts and topics about relationships and people, because I really feel like I have a good grasp on great ways to communicate, great ways to date, great ways to treat people. But for some reason in this dating world, I get a lot of resistance. I get a lot of negativity and a lot of whatever that I would love to talk about with some people. And so hopefully we'll discuss that. But for now, that's a brief overview of my life. Like my life went from never thought I'd ever be anybody. I thought I was a piece of shit. I thought I would never amount to anything. I thought I'd be lucky to even ever have a girlfriend. And today, I've started a few different businesses. I just recently got another patent, and I'm working on launching some products, and I already have a business. I've been self-employed almost all my adult life, and I've got friends. I just have a great life. I make enough money to where I only work half the year now, and I would love to share how I did those things. And even with my weaknesses of not being able to, communicate well or sell myself, and kind of still being afraid of people in a way, I've had to structure my business around getting people to hire me in my company without having to go sell myself, and without any confidence and without that hustle. And if you look at any successful business owner, especially the really successful billionaires, you got to learn how to talk to people, and you got to sell yourself. And somehow I have managed to navigate my way through life to where I've used other tools to sell for me. When I first started out, I sadly kind of had to lean on other people. I leaned on my mom. Like my mom did a lot for me when I was younger. I would lean on her I'd ask her like, "Hey, can you see if somebody wants to hire me? Can you see if they want it done?" And my mom loved me. She did those things for me, and I thank her for that, because I don't know if I could have gotten myself off the ground without her, because I couldn't go ask somebody if they wanted to hire me. I couldn't go. I didn't have the money to go get an advertisement or pay for an ad somewhere or something. Today there's internet. Like we didn't have that when I was a kid. Or when I was starting my business. I guess, they had some dial-up stuff, but people weren't getting on there to where it would be a viable, advertisement, revenue. So anyway, so those are a lot of things I want to go into. Like I came from having no confidence and having very little in my life to today. I've got a lot of tools, a lot of skills, and I've overcome a lot of hurdles. Very confident. I have lots of friends, and I want to improve my speaking skills. I want to improve my communication skills. And I know by getting feedback from others, I know YouTube and all these other platforms that these particular videos may end up on one day, which I'm probably going to get some of these uploaded. I'm going to get feedback. I'm going to get people that, oh my God, look at the way he does that, or look at his shirt, look at his this, and he can't even look at the camera, and he talks with a lisp, or he breathes through his mouth and not his nose, or whatever the hell. People are going to criticize me, and I finally have built up the thick skin to be able to handle that. I could not handle that up until maybe right now. Even yesterday and the month before that and the year before that, I couldn't possibly imagine reading a comment that was criticizing me. And so that is going to be a test for me, because I know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to say things that either sound weird, or maybe I misspeak, or maybe I think something that doesn't jive with most people, or maybe I say something that's not true by accident, or whatever this is. If I speak and I'm ridiculed, I can handle it now. I don't know. What if I exaggerate shit? What if I act weird? What if I say shit that people think is fucking crazy? What if I cuss too much and people think I'm repulsive to listen to? All it's going to do is going to help me hone the skills that I never had growing up. These speaking skills are new skills to me. I don't think most people realize. I watch these kids today that are 10 years old run around with their friends. They talk like their parents. They act as if, they have all the confidence in the world. They can talk to you like they have choices and they have a voice. And I never had a voice till I was in my 30s. I never had the confidence to voice my opinion until, now. And even now I have a hard time voicing my opinion, because I know everyone's got a different one and I don't want to get ridiculed. But you come to a point in your life where you're like, wow, I know a lot of shit. I've been researching and listening to podcasts and lectures, and I averaged 20 some hours a semester for 4 years of college. And even the college, I didn't learn much, because I felt like I already learned all that in my readings, and most people still didn't understand. And for me, it was easy. So I know that I'm not stupid. I know that I've learned a shitload, but I do know that no matter how smart I am, there's no way in hell I can know everything. And there's no way in hell I can even know half of what everyone around me knows. So I can't worry about what other people don't know. If people are ridiculing me, and yourself, if you're listening to this, if people are ridiculing you, that tells more about them than it is about yourself. Either that person has no compassion and they're just a complete jackass, or maybe they're the dumb one and they don't know how to, relay information back to you. And so I'm getting up the guts to speak, and I know I'm going to look back on this video and look at how, my skills could be better. But anyway, that's a brief history of me, or at least what I want to share at this point. And hopefully in future videos, I can have guests on. I can talk about certain topics and share the information that I have. And maybe I can reach out to anybody that's potentially watching this that I could help. I have achieved a whole lot that I couldn't even begin to explain in this video. But hopefully all the knowledge that I've gathered, which is a lot. Oh my God. I spend all my day learning. I'm obsessed with learning because I don't have a social life. I don't go out. I don't go party. And dating for me is horrendous. And that's some of the videos I'm going to talk about that, because all these people assume like, oh, you're this, you're that. Oh, you must be this, you must be that. And oh, no wonder. And this, they don't fucking know. I literally sit here and I build shit and I create shit and I don't go do anything. I don't enjoy going to a bar. I don't go hit on girls. If I don't text a girl, it's because I'm busy doing shit. I'm enjoying my life. I'm building. I'm traveling, and I don't really date. I don't really meet that many people. And if you don't text somebody back these days, they just assume that you're talking to somebody else or you don't like them. And you're like, no, I'm sorry. I just got caught up in doing what I was doing, and I get really excited about stuff. So anyway, so yeah, this is my first video, and if it gets posted, it gets posted. If not, then maybe this gets posted longer from now. I don't know, but this is the beginning of me sharing my life, and I appreciate anyone that's still listening. I know that I've been rambling for a long time now, so if people are still listening, I appreciate it, and I really poured a lot out. It's a lot to take in, and I hope if anyone has any questions or wants to engage with me, comment, reach out, however, and if I can help you in any way, I'd love to. Thank you.